Welcome to the Why Did I Get Cancer podcast. I'm Deborah Herlax-Enos, a small-town girl turned TV nutritionist and healthy living expert. I design health programs for the average guy or gal, including those average guys named Metallica. On September 1st, 2020, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I asked every oncologist the same question, why did I get cancer? But none of my doctors had good answers for me. I wanted answers, and that's why I started this podcast. I want to help you to lower your cancer risk and provide self-care tips for those in the battle. I'm getting answers, and I want to share them with you. Hey, everyone. This takeaway is going to be kind of weird. I'm going to warn you. This is a topic I honestly didn't want to know anything about. It's about parasites and worms that we can pick up from drinking, bad water or eating food and, with maybe questionable sanitation. So when Kim Rogers, also known as the Worm Queen of TikTok, reached out to me, I thought, you know what? As much as I don't want to know this information, I also know that knowledge is power, and I don't want to be sick again. And if her information can help me to be well, I want to know about it. And of course, everybody gets to draw their own conclusions. I mean, this is a challenging topic. Again, it's parasites and worms and other, bugs that are inside of our food supply, water supply, you name it. So we had a fascinating conversation. Yes, we talked a lot about pooping because that's where you can see evidence. But also she was talking about detox pathways, and she calls it the 3 Ps. So it's peeing, perspiration, and pooping. So I will just say, fasten your seatbelts. I really would love for you to listen to this podcast. She also has a lot of really great free resources that I'm actually going to download because I still want to know more about this topic. So give the podcast a listen. I hope you enjoy it and don't get too creeped out. Okay, welcome to everyone today, and welcome grudgingly to my guest because I honestly, Kim Rogers, the Worm Queen, I kind of don't want to know your information, and I'm just going to be really honest. Parasites and worms inside my body freak me out, and I kind of just want to live in my bliss. So don't wreck my bliss.
I'm sorry. I'm real good at that.
Okay, so Kim Rogers, welcome, the Worm Queen, to Why Did I Get Cancer? So why are you so interested in bugs inside of my body?
Well, specifically worms, I guess.
Yes.
Well, I had them. I was very, very ill from parasites and worms. I had Cryptosporidium parvium, which is parvo,
Yes,
which
it
kills
does.
puppies. That's exactly what I wanted in life, is the
Wow,
puppy
okay.
killer. And so I got it from contaminated water that had roundworm in it. And up in the Olympic Peninsula, where my log home is, that I used to live there full time, they have crypto as well because of standing water. And then the actual water itself that I was not drinking, but brushing my teeth, putting my tears in, showering, actually tested positive for roundworm. So between that and then just overall, I was so chronically ill, and they like to live in us and steal our nutrients. So it was just, I was a perfect host for parasites and worms. And I started talking about it on TikTok, and I went very viral in 2021. And I've done this every day since July of 2021. And I started my own business. And I just really want other people to be healthy and to just get a better understanding of their bodies. So this is why I'm here on earth, is to teach people about this.
So you really turned your pain and chronic illness, it sounds like, into your passion of educating others. Yeah.
Yes. And I was really lucky because I've been in Western medicine since 2004. And then in 2018, I started to get pretty ill. We bought our property in 2016. So it kind of correlates in that time frame. But I got pretty ill in 18, and then I started to decline, and I quit working. And but from 04 to 2018, I actually worked in Western medicine. I hold 2 healthcare degrees. I was valedictorian in those degrees. And then I became a professor and ran 25 healthcare colleges. I've authored multiple books. So my passion's always been
Mhm.
medical. But then when I started getting overly ill, I had endometriosis since I was 20. But when I started to get even sicker and I couldn't find out why, I started to figure it out on my own. My doctors didn't want to help me
Mhm.
anymore. I was pretty much medically abandoned.
Oh.
And so I moved to Washington because the doctors here are way better, but they just, it just ended up that I figured out what was wrong with me.
Wow. Well, thank goodness you had a medical background and healthcare background because otherwise I think you just give up. I mean, you mentioned the word medically abandoned, which I'd actually never heard of that before, but I can see that happening, especially I don't know if you mentioned to your doctors, "Hey, could I possibly have a parasite? Hey, could I possibly have a
Oh,
worm?"
yeah.
And I'm sure your doctors, how much training did they have in med school on these? 0.
Zero.
Yeah. And, when it comes to nutrition,
Zero.
I think there's like a 3-hour class they take, and that's it. So so
Yeah.
things haven't changed, and so I'm just gonna go ahead and say it, they probably thought you were a little cray cray.
Oh my gosh. 5 years before I thought I had parasites. And I actually now like dissected that
Mhm.
situation and I know for a fact something was ravishing my
Hmm.
body. I went in to get a biopsy of something very abnormal in my
Mhm.
area, and they couldn't do it in those that day, so they had me come back 10 days later and it was gone. And so,
Huh.
yeah, and I said, "Do you think it could be pinworms? I have itchy bum during the
Mhm.
full moon." And my doctors were like, "No, by the way, that doctor is now deworming with Parafy." So it just shows you what a big turn of events this all has become for me as
Wow.
well as the world, because we literally sell to the world.
Really?
And so it just became kind of a thing, right? Like the first 3 days that I did a cleanse, my first
Mhm.
parasite cleanse, I saw roundworm, flukes, pinworms. Like it was a disaster in the toilet. And
Okay.
why I went viral is because I said, like, carcasses were everywhere
Really?
because they were everywhere, and so now, like, looking back, I know that a lot of my symptoms and, I had 13
Oh my
surgeries because they couldn't figure out what was
gosh.
wrong with me. I had a hysterectomy when I was 29. I have no children. So, a lot of it does link now back to parasites, mold, and I do have chronic
Oh.
Lyme, but no one knew any of this. And I've dug in myself. All of these were self
Mhm.
tested. I've done everything myself. And so that's for me, it's just really important to teach other people to do
Right, and
these things.
so I mean, I don't know how you put 2 and 2 together, but what what were the top symptoms that you had where you finally said, "Ah," you had that aha moment where, "Could this possibly be parasites or worms?"
I didn't poop for a month.
A month?
It was the most
Oh
uncomfortable I've
my
ever
gosh, I don't know
been
how you even
in
got
my
out of bed.
It was awful, and we were living in our travel trailer
Oh,
while building our
fun.
log home.
In a teeny
I
tiny
know.
airplane
Yeah.
bathroom basically in your trailer.
Well, we did have because it was so important, we did have a shed that
Mhm.
we built that had a real toilet in it with a squatty potty and a
Okay.
bidet. So, we did have, like, that, but yes, other than that, it was not the most and actually, we ended up finding out we had mold poisoning because we lived in the
And
travel
it had
trailer
yeah, that's really
with
common
mold.
to have mold in a travel
Yeah,
trailer, yeah.
it is.
Okay, so you didn't
Mhm.
poop for an entire month. I mean, I'm
Yes.
sure a lot of people listen to this podcast, think, "Well, I don't that's never happened to me. Maybe I haven't pooped in 3 days or 4 days." But is that
That's unusual. You
you
should be pooping
should,
every
you
day.
should, and according to,
Yes,
like, Dr.
every day,
Oz, you should be pooping, multiple times a day.
2 to 3
Mhm.
times a day. Every time you go to the bathroom,
Yeah,
you're supposed to be pooping because your body's releasing
right.
those toxins, not to be absorbed back into your
Interesting.
body. And that's, because it's an exit. So whatever your body isn't using anymore, it goes
Right.
out. But sits for too long, it reabsorbs those toxins back into your body that they're trying to get rid of in
Wow.
your body. So it's really a vicious cycle. And so that's kind of one thing that I do teach. We call it the 3 Ps: peeing, pooping, and
Okay.
perspiring, making sure you're doing those before you do any sort of
Mhm.
detoxing or cleansing. And so we show you with free resources, ebooks. All of my
Oh, that's
knowledge is
great.
free.
Okay. Wow.
Mhm.
I I'm I'm
Everything I've
you
learned,
know
it's
what? I'm
all
thinking, Kim, that I'm going to probably have to do this, but
you
give me a
are.
few more symptoms.
Okay. So usually grinding of the teeth because your lymphatic system is overwhelmed, acne, eczema. So a lot of skin issues can be from candida, parasites, including roundworm
Okay.
and whipworm, round and tapeworm. For me, not going to the
Mhm.
bathroom. So my pathways were
Very
very, very
clogged.
clogged
Yeah.
up. IBS, IBD, so consistent constipation and consistent diarrhea is considered one of their cycles because they're just like humans. They cycle and they lay their eggs and then they die off and then you are when they're dying off, they're leaving ammonia and all of the viruses and toxins that they're holding
Mhm.
on to, including mold. And so, yeah. What else? There's so many
Wow. So
symptoms.
symptoms of things you would just that things that just seem like part of our normal daily life now,
Yeah.
IBS and, constipation and I
Mhm.
mean, that just seems like, hey, I'm alive and I live in America. But it's
Yeah, yeah. We're not supposed to
we
be
are
ill
not
like
supposed to
this.
be. I think I mean, we
No,
really have normalized being ill.
we
Yeah.
have. And other countries deworm, and I
What?
don't think that they realize, "Oh, yes, yes." This gets everyone, so if you're listening, I'm gonna name off a
Please
few of the
do.
countries that deworm.
Okay.
Mexico deworms twice a year minimum or with symptoms. Anytime that they have any sort of a symptom issue, they'll go and get a deworming pill and it's synthetic. It's about $7. They can also do herbs, but if for them it's so much easier just to deworm
Mhm.
with a pill. Jamaica deworms monthly using the bush. It's a tea that they drink once a month. The Amish deworm consistently because they know that this is something that is normal out there in the world. Japan deworms, China deworms, Guatemala deworms, Latin America countries deworm. There's a lot of people, a lot of countries that
Oh my
deworm.
gosh. And
Yeah.
and so
Oh,
I've never heard of a country deworming before. And so it sounds like there's a pharmacological way to do it. You said in Mexico they take a pill, it costs $7. But then is there kind of
yeah.
a more natural way to do it as well? Us.
Us.
Okay.
There is. Herbs are the way. I've
Mhm.
done them all. I've done herbs, I've done the synthetics, I rotate because when we first found out we were this ill, I my husband was like, "100% I don't want
Oh
this
my
in me anymore."
gosh.
So, we did herbs, so, like, wormwood, black walnut hull, Oregon grapefruit, and so the way that my company started, which is Rogers Hood, and us making Parafy, which is a
Mhm.
Parafy kit, it's 3 tinctures and a binder with instructions, and we literally hold your hand during the whole time. We sold an upward of 90,000 kits, so we're quite busy. We manufactured ourselves. We have a facility that's in Arkansas. We started in a pretty small facility that was behind we call it a shop behind my by my business
Mhm.
partner's house. We're in a 3,400 square foot facility now, and at the end of this month, we'll be in our 10,000 square foot facility because we hand make everything ourselves in big
Wow.
batches. So we take herbs and we soak the herbs so that you can get your parasite cleanse, your candida cleanse, and a heavy metal. Parasites can hold up to 6 times their weight in heavy metals. And so when you're deworming, you're dropping heavy metals. So you need a way to remove those heavy
Mhm.
metals as well. And while you're deworming, you're also ridding your body of candida. So you're already going through what we call die-offs or Herxheimer
Okay.
reaction, which is where when they're dying off, they're dropping toxins, they're peeing and pooping in our bodies, and they're leaving eggs. And so you have to come in there and clean all of that up in order for you to not reabsorb it into
Okay.
your body. Again, like
Right.
pooping, right? If it sits, it's going to lay stagnant and it's going to cause
Mhm.
more harm
Mhm.
than good. And so I didn't know any of this when I started deworming. And I made this video. It's 60 seconds long. I have 10.3 million views on it. Within the first 2 hours, a million people watched it. And I at the time, I thought, "Oh, yeah, I know a lot about this." Oh, I knew nothing.
Isn't that
Nothing.
just the truth of
I know
life
everything else.
anyway?
Yeah, nothing that like, what's a binder? But herbs are the best in my opinion because they're not so frequency
Mhm.
driven when it comes to just one type of parasite. So when you take like an anti-parasitic pill, you're removing what's on that pill. But with herbs, you can actually remove a variety of different
Very
parasites and
interesting.
worms. And they're two different things. Parasites
2
and worms
different
are two
things.
different things.
Okay. Wow.
Mm.
Okay, so first of all, I love that one of the herbs is called wormwood.
Yes.
So they must have known a long time whoever named that knew what they were talking about. So how can somebody actually 2 questions. Who shouldn't cleanse? And how would you feel post-cleanse?
So people that are on chemo meds should not cleanse until they're off at least 30 days, not
Mhm.
medical advice, but it's because wormwood can
Mm.
thin your blood out. It's actually considered Mother Nature's
Oh,
steroid. And so it can thin your blood. Other countries like Germany use wormwood with MS patients because it really is such a great cleansing type of herb. And anyone that's on blood thinner
okay.
Coumadin, they should not worm. And that's specifically because it thins your blood already, and you obviously have something going on with your heart if
Right.
you're on those things. You can't deworm or use herbs when you're pregnant, breastfeeding, or under the age of 3. And we go with the
Mhm.
strictest herb. So Oregon grapefruit is the strictest herb. That's also an anti-parasitic, but it's also an anti-inflammatory, and so a lot of parasites cause inflammation. And I'll send you the picture. I used to weigh almost 300 pounds and I was very ill, but I used to only weigh like
Mm.
175. And then I got sicker and sicker from all of the inflammation
Mm.
that was in my body caused from the parasites.
Wow. Okay.
So when I created it, I literally just took the herbs that I knew would target specific
Mhm.
ailments that were caused from parasites. And one of which is like sometimes it's painful to
Mhm.
deworm. So I grabbed
Mhm.
willow bark and
Yep.
that helps with pain. And Oregon grapefruit helps with inflammation, but it's also an
Mm.
anti-parasitic. Usnea helps remove bacteria, which is also um, an issue. Viruses and bacteria are also issues within parasites
Mm.
that they harbor them.
Okay. Wow. Um, I would imagine having these things dying off in your body isn't gonna make you feel warm and fuzzy for a season, for a little bit.
No.
Yeah.
Right. It's a little
Yeah.
uncomfortable. We do our best with our kit to help
Mhm.
with that, and one of the things that I learned was how to
Yes.
binding, and that's really important. I knew nothing about that because Western
Mm-mm.
medicine doesn't teach you
Yeah.
those things. They don't, "Oh, you should take a smidge amount of charcoal to help you bind
Mhm.
toxins." So that's why my first
Yeah.
cleanse wasn't great, and then obviously I learned over the last few years how to do this
Mhm. Okay,
correctly.
yeah, so it sounds like your kit, called Parify. Parify
Yes.
is probably just a really great place to start, minus those
Yes.
populations you said shouldn't be doing it. Yeah, yeah,
Right, right. And anybody
mhm,
can do it because we don't require a doctor, we don't require a practitioner, and there's other companies
mm,
like Cellcore. You do have to go to a
mhm,
practitioner with them, but I just found that like I couldn't afford that when I was in the midst
mhm,
of all of this. I had roughly about $100 that my husband and I could each pay, and that was our price point, and it'll
yeah,
never change. So and it's only 30 days just to start to see if this is something that you want to do. And I mean, we've had such great
mhm,
results with people,
yeah,
including myself.
yeah,
So,
and it sounds like I think I heard you mention something about a full moon. Which I'm just gonna say,
yes,
Kim, sounds super woo-woo, but I also
it
like
does.
woo-woo things. So, tell me what the whole full moon thing is about.
Okay, so you know that the French eat
Yes.
snails, right? Okay, so that's the kind of a
Okay.
beginning stages of it. Basically, parasites are the most active during the full moon because that's when the serotonin is the highest.
Oh.
And they eat your serotonin. That's why majority of us are depressed and anxious because they're literally during the full
What?
moon eating our serotonin. They're dislodging. So they dislodge 3 days before the full moon. And the French, actually, when I started studying how they deworm, they start 3 days before the full moon because they start to dislodge themselves out of our muscle and our tissue to plant themselves in other parts of our body. So 3 days before the full moon, they start to dislodge themselves. During the full moon, they eat our serotonin, causing us to kind of feel crazy and causing us to be very unhappy. And then you just continue to keep deworming. But the French eat snails, and that's shishtomycin, which I also had. And so I don't eat snails, but I had it from fresh water. So shishtomycin goes in your bladder and in your kidneys. And so most French know that they should be deworming. So anyway,
Okay,
back to the
yes.
full moon. So the full moon, that's why people are kind of crazy. And I didn't know that when I worked in the field either. I worked in the ER, and I would, we'd always go, oh God, it's the
Right.
full moon and here it comes. Yeah, no, it's because people are ramping up on low serotonin. The parasites are peeing and pooping in our bodies, releasing their eggs, changing their cycles, moving around. That's why.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So this has been going on for millennia. I mean, parasites and
Yes.
worms are not new.
No. And they're
They
smarter
are.
than us.
Okay.
And they can control this.
It does. It
So
sounds a little
crazy.
Star Trek-y. I'm just going to say it.
They can control us. So you want me to give you a few other examples?
Lay it on me, Kim.
All right.
Do it.
All right. So first off,
we have to get together. We do.
We do.
Yeah.
We're just up the road from
We just found out we're neighbors. So there you go.
Yeah, we're just right down the road.
It's summer. Well, it's almost summer. We're just going to call it summer. And it's the season of entertaining and barbecuing and honestly having things on hand for kind of last minute dinner parties, casual. And so this is one of the reasons why I always have a freezer full of Butcher Box sockeye salmon. Each fillet is about 25 grams of protein, under 200 calories, and I can throw it on the barbecue. I can toss it in the oven, or even on my new Blackstone, which video to come on that. But here's the deal with this actual deal with Butcher Box. You probably heard me talk earlier about how I totally blew it and gave y'all a better deal than Butcher Box was actually offering. So the deal is still going. They have decided to honor that. Thank you, Butcher Box. And you get $20 off of your first box and 2 pounds of free sockeye salmon in every box for up to a year, which is a $380 value. Just go to the website butcherbox.com/Enos, E-N-O-S, and then use the code Enos, all lowercase, to get this free deal. I don't know how long it's going to be going on, but summer is happening. Time to get your freezer full of salmon. Hope you enjoy.
When you crave sugar after 7 p.m., it's not you craving sugar. It's a parasite craving sugar. It's candida, actually. And so one of the symptoms of having parasites is craving sugar all the time and also craving sugar after 7 p.m. They're nocturnal creatures, so they wake up and then they keep you up, insomnia. So you have major insomnia and you sleep during the day because they sleep during the day. And let's talk about one thing that everyone knows about. So then maybe it'll give people a better idea of really what mind controlling with parasites is like. Toxoplasmosis. We all know what toxoplasmosis is. It is a parasite that when you're pregnant, they say do not scoop cat poop.
Right.
Because it can be transferred. But see, the thing is that they failed to tell everyone anyone can get toxoplasmosis. In fact, I have a video in my drafts that a gentleman got toxoplasmosis from cutting his finger when he was butchering a deer, and it transferred to him. And so he got toxoplasmosis from a blood transfer from the deer that he had. Okay, so let's talk about it. Toxoplasmosis is actually found in mouse, and mice, and rats. And then they go and cuddle up to the cat, which they don't like each other, right? Mice and cats don't like each other. but the mouse will cuddle to the cat because the inhibitions have been lowered by toxo controlling the mouse's mind. And in order for it to go to its next stages, it has to do it inside of a cat's gut. So the mouse goes to the cat eats the mouse, and then the next stages of toxo start to form. And then the mouse then goes and poops in a
Mhm.
cat box because the toxo wants it to go to the real host, which is us, the
Okay.
human. And then it starts to control our mind, causing depression, causing people to have crazy type of personality
Mhm.
changes, including different safety issues like motorcycles. A lot of motorcyclists that end up like crotch
Mhm.
rockets and stuff where they end up dying. They'll do an autopsy and they'll find that they had toxo because there's no fear anymore. The fear is gone from toxoplasmosis.
Wow. Okay, I think, I'm processing. It's a
Yeah, it's a
lot.
lot.
So Kim, in other countries where they are actively cleansing, have you looked at the data to see what depression rates are like there versus here?
Half. Half.
Seriously? So there's actual data.
Yeah. Half. We just are so not thinking that this could happen to
Of
us in Western
course,
medicine
of
countries.
course. We get our water from the municipality and we get, our
And my water was contaminated.
yeah.
Completely tested positive, and other places, 75% of the country's water is contaminated.
Mm,
So, I mean, I'm like friends with everyone now, right?
right.
Because I talk about all of this every day with other companies as well as
Mhm.
we have almost 1 million followers across all of our platforms. Like water is pretty much the number one source for me.
Okay.
It was for being the most
Mm.
ill was because we had contaminated water.
Well, you bring up a good point, and that was my next question. How do people get these little buggers besides maybe having a cat in your house? How do you get these, or a dog? How do you get these little buggers inside?
Not soaking your produce appropriately. So they're in our produce, they're on our produce, they're microscopic, is how they kind of begin. So if you're not washing your produce, or for me, like I frequently will eat raw produce out and about. I don't do it very often because I don't know how other people clean their
Mhm.
produce. Water, that's a big one, the water.
Okay, so let's talk about produce because I talk about that a lot on this podcast about the importance of, eating a massive amounts of fruits and vegetables. What's the appropriate way to wash produce? And does organic help in any way?
No, it doesn't really matter if it's organic or not organic. Parasites will live on. In fact, some people say that organic is worse just because they put the pesticides on there in order for them to keep the bugs off.
Mhm.
So either way, you lose,
Mm.
right? If you're not soaking. So here's how you soak your
Okay.
produce: 2 cups of white vinegar, a half of a lime, 2 tablespoons of Celtic sea salt, and distilled or filtered water. You soak it for 5 to 10 minutes. And then I now use a company called Thursage. They have an ozone bubbler. So I soak my produce that way for 5 to 10 minutes. And then I rinse my produce and then I put it back in clean water. And I put the Thursage bubbler in there and it does it for about 10 minutes.
Hmm.
Ozone removes bacteria, pesticides, and parasites as well.
Okay.
So when I'm replenishing my body with nutrients, I'm trying to keep it as clean as possible.
Mhm.
So I do 2 steps to clean my produce now. But it takes about 35 to 40 minutes. And honestly, my produce lasts a lot longer because it doesn't have any of that bacteria trying to eat the produce anymore.
Okay. I was just going to ask you, it sounds like if you're adding Celtic sea salt, is that going to start to break down the produce?
No, and in fact, it's adding magnesium back
Mhm.
into your
Mm.
produce. It's putting nutrients that our body really does need that our produce is no longer
Mhm.
giving us because it's just stripped from our soil.
Right. Okay. So when you go to the supermarket and you buy a bag of lettuce and it says triple washed,
Mm-mm.
I, I, s-
No, I don't
I, s-
have
I
it.
still wash it. I
Same.
do.
I have some videos of people pulling out their triple washed and it has a worm in it.
Yeah, I don't trust anybody.
I don't trust anything either. I question it all now, right?
You have
Because
to, but it's also exhausting. Let's just admit that
it's
it's
exhausting.
exhausting.
That's why we try and make a deworming kit so simple.
Right.
You literally just take it 3 times a day in a binder at night. Like, it's so easy because we're now becoming awakened and aware of all of this. And it's not just a country thing or an animal thing. I mean, this is a human
Mhm.
thing at this point. We deworm our animals, we deworm our
That's
dogs,
true.
and they can give us parasites. And I'm gonna go out on a limb, and I say this a lot on my podcast, that 100% of people that have pets have parasites because their dogs lick them, lay with them, their cats lay
Yep.
with them, and you shouldn't get rid of them. You should just deworm them, and you deworm yourself. We make a habit of doing it for our animals. We should be doing it for
Mhm.
ourselves. Where other countries, like I said, in Mexico, it's mandatory for you to deworm in order to participate in specific sports, elementary school. They're very specific because once you get them, it is very hard to get rid of them. I mean, I've spent years.
Really? So there's a requirement to deworm
Yes.
before playing certain sports in other
Yes.
countries?
Mhm. Yep. Pinworm is like lice of the butt. So
Okay. Well, I mean, honestly, I've been in healthcare for over 30 years. And this is a topic I honestly
yeah,
knew zero about. And now I'm geeking out, but I'm also thinking I work full time. Like how do I make these changes to still support my lifestyle?
it's so
It
easy.
is
It's so
okay.
easy. It is. Parafise 3 times a day for 30 days. If you find that you like it, you can continue cleansing your body. You just really find the time to clean your produce. You just find the time to do the few self-care things. That's how I look at
Mhm.
it. I mean, I work from home, but I also work like a
Yeah.
lot because I'm running this business
Right.
and I content, but I have found the time to actually stop and self-care
Mhm.
because if not, like no one around me is going to be good
Yeah.
either because I'm going to always be sick.
Okay. So tell us more about self-care. Are you mainly talking about making sure that your produce is clean? Are there other things that are self-care that supports keeping these buggers out of your body?
Yes. Yes. So I do a lot of red light therapy.
Oh,
I love red
okay.
light. It's one of my favorite things, like with castor oil and red light.
Mhm.
And I do PMF mats, basically just making my body in a movement type of state
Mhm.
to make it inhospitable so that if for some reason I did eat something, which I have, that's been questionable, that I am not in a stagnant state anymore.
Mhm.
So I'm constantly in a movement type of state. And it's not like overly exerting my body. I'm not like out there running marathons.
Mhm.
I'm just walking and I'm being more productive and just making sure that like I'm healthier.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like you're staying, really in a state of just constant movement. So your
Yes.
lymphatic system is fully functioning, blood flow.
Gua sha. Yep.
Mhm.
You do gua sha. Gua sha moves that lymph.
Mhm.
Make sure that your body is in a moving state,
Mhm.
especially when you're deworming,
Okay.
because they don't want to die. So they're going to do everything they can
Mhm.
to stay in you because you're a really good host.
Yeah, and they've been there for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually, decades. The Egyptians knew about this. They knew way more than us. There's pictures on the sides showing parasites. Yeah.
Wow, really?
We're just so behind the times in Western medicine. We're so behind the
We
times.
are so behind the times. I had no idea. I mean, nobody is talking about this. I mean, now that I've
Yeah.
met you and I've been researching for the last couple of months, now I do see that people are talking about it, but
Yeah.
I'd say it's still fairly fringe.
It
Yeah.
is. Well, I think people just think that it can't happen to us because our water's so great.
Mhm.
And I just don't agree with that. I don't agree with our water is that good. In fact, like Washington's water might be one of the worst waters that I've ever had tested.
Really?
Yeah, not just Hoodsport, the state itself.
Okay.
So it's just disappointing that we don't really test for parasites in our water. We test for crypto, giardia, and defragiles, but they don't test for nematodes.
Hmm.
And nematodes are physical worms, but they start out as microscopic and then they grow into the physical
Hmm.
worm. And they don't test for that in our country. They think that if there's no bacteria, that parasites and worms can't live.
Hmm.
So you've got that issue going on. You've got a water issue for sure in our country. And then people just don't think it can happen to us because we're a first world country.
Right.
But like parasites don't stop when the Mexico's food comes here,
Yeah.
right? We eat Mexico's produce. The food doesn't the parasites don't go, oh, the border. We're not coming across it.
Right. Yeah.
We have the
We're
same
gonna
dirt as
stop
them.
right here. Yeah.
Yeah. And we have dirt. Like you walk barefoot. That's where you get hookworm. You go onto the beach. The reasons why they don't let the dogs go on the beach is because when dogs poop in the beach and then it settles, they really like sand. And so then the worms take a hold. That's why they don't allow dogs on the beach, is because of parasites that are inside of the dog.
Okay. I just spent a lot of time walking in San Diego on Dog Beach barefoot.
Yeah.
Shoot. Kim, I don't like you anymore.
No, with the smile.
Okay. So people have been cleansing for thousands of years. Yeah.
Yes.
So the Egyptians knew about it. There's drawings about it. We
Mhm.
haven't made the leap in this country, but lots of other countries have.
Yes.
How so do you just cleanse maybe, once and you're gonna
3 a
3
year.
different times a year? Is that
3 to 4
it is
seasonally.
season so it's a seasonal thing. And
Well, when you cleansed a lot, yes,
Mhm,
you can cleanse back to back. Like I cleansed for almost a year straight because I didn't want them anymore. I knew I was feeling better.
mhm, mhm.
But we say 3 to 4 times a year because you start it. And then if you still have symptoms, then you just wait 7 days and you do it again. So it's just until you start to feel like they're out of you. Pork, especially, you need to cook that because pork will give you a tapeworm seconds. Like they'll take a hold
Okay.
if you don't have your meat cooked appropriately.
Okay. So the meat really has to be cooked appropriately to be safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meat, and people say, "Oh, well then I'll go vegan," but it's actually in our produce too if you're not cleaning your produce. So it
Mhm,
really doesn't matter what you eat.
mhm,
We should be cleansing, like deworming. I mean, if we want to use the right terms, I like to say cleansing because it's way prettier
mhm.
than
Yeah,
deworming.
it really is. It makes it sound a little bit better, kind of like a spa treatment. Okay. So what other types of chronic disease could be linked to parasites and worms?
Well, for me, my
Mhm,
chronic illnesses that are no longer here, I'm in remission from endometriosis. So I had stage 4 endometriosis and beginning stages of cervical C. And I had a hysterectomy and then I had 5 surgeries after my hysterectomy. And now I've been in remission from endometriosis for over 3 years.
mhm.
Fibromyalgia because it's a pain
Wow.
issue, right?
Okay.
So they're in our joints, they're in our tissue, they're in our muscle. So when you start to alleviate that inflammation and remove the toxin, not just parasites, but also mold can contribute to it. They say sarcoidosis, which is what my mom had. And one of my friends that had sarcoid, she dewormed and she had mass amounts of liver flukes and blood flukes that came out. And now she's in sarcoid remission, IBS, IBD, anxiety.
Hmm.
I mean, all of these things can create that lymphatic issue, which then creates stagnant, which then creates inflammation.
So it all points to inflammation. I mean,
Yeah.
all roads go to inflammation. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Yes, and then they create that, right?
Mhm.
So, what's your root cause? That
Yes.
that ultimately is where I think as far as society goes, that's where we need to continue to keep pointing our health.
Mhm.
So, we've only been in Western medicine for 100 years, and then they took the plants and then they replicated that to make it synthetic. And that's where a lot of our synthetically driven medications are
Mhm.
formed from. And our bodies aren't meant to process all of these toxins and synthetic
Right,
medications.
they really aren't. Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So, curious if I'm growing my own herbs or my own lettuce, is that a safer version?
You still should wash your produce.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, no matter
No
what.
matter what.
But yeah, I do feel like it's a safer version, but when I was growing my own produce, I had parasites on it too.
Mhm.
Like I saw worms, and I think that that's really what made a bigger light bulb go off for me. I was cutting my broccoli down, and I was already on TikTok at the time, and people were like, "Oh my god, so you can't have any produce?" And I'm like, "No, you can. You just need to prepare it
Yeah, you
correctly."
just need to wash it. And so in the show notes, let's get that information out with your formula that you know, how you clean your produce, but also your ozone machine, which
Yeah.
sounds like a really cool because we eat a ton of produce here. Like I cook
Yeah.
90% of our
Oh,
meals and I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing.
it's really easy. I know it sounds like a lot because it's so new to people,
Mhm.
but I mean, when you have 30 minutes and you soak in like the soak for 10 minutes and then you rinse it and then you put it in this ozone machine that you literally just push a button. It's a medical device. It's like this big
Mhm.
and then it cleans it for you and you just let it sit there and then you rinse it and you eat it. Like now you really have regained all of the nutrients and your body's not going to fight against anything harmful that could be settled inside of your produce.
Mhm. Okay. And it sounds like your body does need some help. Like if you just all of a sudden start eating in a different way, your body's not going to all of a sudden say, "Okay, I'm going to dump all these bugs."
Right.
It needs assistance.
It does. We need to have that assistance
Okay.
now. Maybe if you started doing this, you just did it as a maintenance,
Mhm.
you wouldn't need such assistance, but because Western medicine countries are so far behind the times that we do really need to have additional assistance at this point.
Okay.
And so, 3 to 4 times a year is really just a very basic, broad umbrella term,
Mhm.
but you can do this back to back in order for you to get on a good path of just
Mhm.
maintenance, right? So, when I go out of the country or I eat something questionable, I bring my kit with me and then I actually take that prior just to assist my body further if I eat something questionable.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. All right. So if there's one thing, because you've given me a lot of things to think about, and now my brain is kind of reeling, and I'm just thinking, okay, so where do I start today? Because I want to feel better.
Yeah. So you can go into my profile and I can send it to you too, but we have mass amounts of ebooks that are free.
Okay.
And we have a couple like how to open your drainage and then how fast track. So it's like everything I talk about in like a 17-page ebook. And then our website,
Hmm.
going and like reviewing the herbs that we use and just kind of getting an idea of how those herbs help your body in a lot of different ways. It's like a symphony of herbs. Your body is the orchestra and you're just trying to conduct it in a way so that you don't have these low frequencies, these low lining parasites in your system causing you to not live your best life.
Okay. And then you're talking about, herbs. Are these herbs just something you can add to meals and kind of be part of a daily mild detox?
You can,
Mhm.
but you still need to do a main detox.
Okay.
You still need to do like a main cleanse.
Mhm.
But in other countries, they add pumpkin seeds for a reason onto their salads. And it's because pumpkin seeds is an anti-parasitic. So if there's even a slight chance that your lettuce or your raw produce might have parasites on them, it can go in there and help alleviate them again. Like kind of like what I do with my kit prior to eating anything questionable.
Okay.
So a lot of countries will add papaya seeds into the mix of their life because papaya seeds are anti-parasitic and they just have the knowledge that we just don't to utilize food as your way of cleansing. And so that's what we did. So like cilantro is an anti-metal,
Mhm.
so it helps, it's a heavy metal detoxer. And so we use cilantro in our heavy metal detox tincture. And actually everything that we use, you could eat it if you wanted to. Clove, garlic, these are all anti-parasitic type of foods. We just prep them with alcohol and distilled water,
Mhm.
and we soak our herbs. So we just prep them so that it can be used as a main cleanse.
Right.
But you can actually eat these things every day to help make your body inhospitable.
I love that. I love that because it sounds like every country kind of has an idea of kind of has an idea of how to deal with parasites and worms that are just naturally occurring in the food
Yep.
system.
Yep. They're just naturally occurring in general. Like they're in our dirt,
Yeah.
they're in our water, they're in our lakes, they're in our
Yeah.
rivers. This is something that like we should have all been aware of.
Mhm.
But personally, because I was a professor and I did teach thousands of students and I did teach labs, there just isn't the knowledge, like you said, out there. We just don't have this knowledge. And then a little bit of knowledge we do have, we just, oh, that can't happen to us. And when you send your stool into a lab, they don't have the time to sit and look at it all. So
Mhm.
it's just like, oh, well, I don't see anything, and they move on. And I personally do not think this is a malicious thing on everyone's front,
Mhm.
but I just think that the egos have gotten in the way of not understanding that this is something we should all be doing to remain a healthier society.
Wow. And so if you do a stool test, your doctor asks
Mhm.
you, you're not feeling well, whatever it is, your reason you're doing it, is it even if you do have parasites and or worms, will it show up in a normally tested stool?
No,
Okay.
we don't have the capabilities in Western medicine,
Mhm.
and I did my own little scientific lab test. Of course I did, right?
Of course you did. You love
So,
this stuff, don't you?
no, it's so fun. Okay, so I took the same
Mhm.
stool and I sent it to LabCorp as I did to the place that I go, which is parasites.org. And parasites.org tested positive for crypto and roundworm, but and LabCorp tested negative for everything.
Really? So
Same stool.
yeah, so of course you get that lab report and you think, "Okay, well, this is not the reason I feel like crap."
Hmm. Yep. And it is like, and the nice thing is you can just cleanse. Like you can either deworm with a pill, or you can do the Parafy kit or the herbs that are in the Parafy kit, and it's not going to harm you.
Mhm.
It's not like you're going to, not medical advice, but it's not going to harm you. In fact, a lot of people that may never see parasites because they're mostly microscopic, they just feel better. And like that's the whole purpose of this, is just to feel
Mhm.
better.
Just to feel better. And it's actually once you get past the yuck factor and you
Hmm.
make it a little bit more, just clinical, it sounds like most of us have this. And so
Hmm.
it could be a somewhat easy fix by maybe using your kit, your Parafy kit, or, doing herbs and other things. But it sounds like you have some really good educational resources, which I'll be honest, I haven't looked at yet, but as soon as we finish this podcast, I'm going to go download it because I am kind of geeking out and I just, I want to feel better. I mean, who doesn't want to feel better? And there are days I just, maybe it's the Washington weather, who knows what it is. I just feel kind of,
Yep.
fuzzy in the head and I'm tired and joints are aching and, if this could make me feel better, why not try it?
It's amazing.
Okay.
So my mom is currently on my kit, and
Okay.
we had no contact for 7 years. So it's pretty cool that over the last few months, my family and I rekindled our relationship.
Mhm.
And I sent her a kit and she started it. And she sent me a message last night and said she's never felt this good in her whole life.
Oh, I love that.
Same.
Wow.
I cried for a bit. And I was like, oh my God, like not only is it helping myself on a personal level, it's helping my family, but
Oh.
I've seen so many people's lives change including not being able to have children, by just removing the toxins that are overburdening our
Mm.
bodies. They have children now. Our bottle guy, the guy that we get our bottles from, him and his wife tried for 3 years. And I sent him a kit just on a whim. I was like, Tyler, just try this. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Like, you're going to feel better. And then they got pregnant like, like 2 months later, and they have a beautiful boy.
Oh, wow.
It just shows like the difference in how our bodies are supposed to behave and how these toxins can cause our bodies to behave. And that's just not, our bodies were not meant to be sick. Our bodies are meant to heal.
But wow, what a blessing. So you helped yourself and now you helped your family. I mean, to see these stories, what a blessing.
It's been pretty cool.
I have a lot of processing to do today, a lot of reading, but I am so intrigued and I just want to be educated in this area. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, you guys, I wanted to tell you about one of my favorite healthy hacks, and it's a fat hack. Okay, first of all, I've been around for a long time. I'm going to admit that. And I had a practice back in the mid 90s. And honestly, the science back then, I say science with quotation marks, was don't eat fat because eating fat will make you fat. Well, fast forward to 2024, I'm so grateful that now we know that eating good, heart healthy fat is one of the best things you can do for your body. So people ask me, what do I cook in? I cook in ghee. That's spelled Ghee. Ghee has a 485 smoke point, which means I can cook at pretty high temperatures and I'm going to be just fine. That fat's not going to oxidize. It also has a broad spectrum fatty acid, along with butyrate and conjugated linoleic acid. I know those are a lot of really big words, but let me tell you, the brand that I love the most, and this is the one that's always in my pantry, Ancient Organics Ghee. I love this company. They make ghee the old-fashioned way, which is the right way. And ghee is basically clarified butter, but their butter they get is all grass-fed, which increases butyrate. Butyrate will help to aid digestion and help to increase your digestive health. Conjugated linoleic acid, that's that really big phrase, can actually support your cardiovascular health. And one of the things that I love the most about using ghee is it also can help to calm inflammation. And as I've spoken about it before, inflammation is basically the root cause of just about every disease known to man. So again, my favorite brand, Ancient Organics Ghee. I love the way they do things. You can get this product on Amazon, some Costco's, and usually your local specialty supermarket. So enjoy. Hey, y'all, can you do me a favor today and go and leave a review of this podcast? I know that the more great reviews, wink, wink, emphasis on great, reviews that I get, along with more downloads and more subscribers, that pushes this podcast out to people who might normally not even find it. And the reason I started this podcast and my real heart for starting this podcast is that I needed this information. It wasn't available. And so I started a podcast so that I could be a blessing to others. So you're a blessing to me just by being here. And again, thank you for your support. Thank you for your positive reviews and all of the notes that you send me. And also just wanted to say, hey, keep in mind, I'm not a doctor. And if you need medical advice, please reach out to your team. That is going to be just the best source for you because they know you. So again, I hope you enjoyed this podcast.